Hello and welcome to Well Done English class. Today we're going to learn English with the UK and US political histories and cultures. This is a C1 lesson plan, so you must have a very high level of English to be able to partake in this one. Okay, let's begin. So today we're going to start the lesson with vocabulary so you can understand the text as we read them. You can pause the video now if you'd like to do the exercise yourself. If not, I'm going to go ahead and do the answers straight away. Okay, so the first word we have here is baron. Baron means a member of the lower rank of nobility, historically granted land and privileges by the monarch in exchange for the loyalty and military service. Assertion. Assertion is a confident or forceful statement declaring a belief or fact, often made to emphasize a point or principle. We're going to see these words later with examples. There's assertion. The assertion inside of the Declaration of Independence is what we will be looking at. Hereditary. Hereditary is something that is inherited through family, such as titles, property, or power, typically passed down from one generation to the next. So in this lesson, it will be hereditary kind of power of the monarchy, how the king passes down the power of the throne to their children. To enshrine. To enshrine, to contain or keep in a place that is highly admired and respected. We have the word shrine here. If we think of a shrine, it's something that we admire, that we love, that we even worship. So enshrine is to put it in that place. To derive. To get something from something else. You can derive pleasure from a movie. You can derive pleasure from food. We use derive pleasure as a kind of collocation together. We usually use these words in tandem. Pivotal. Pivotal is central or important. We can think of pivot, right, as a point where it tips. So if it's a pivotal point, it's a point that was so important that it tipped something to the other side. To foster. To foster is to encourage the development or growth of ideas or feelings. We can understand this also from the noun foster, right? We foster a child. We help a child grow up and we encourage the development and growth of that child. Fostering a child and then to foster something. You can foster an idea or you can foster a feeling, but in this context it has the same idea of helping or encouraging something to grow. Profound. Profound is felt or experienced very strongly or in an extreme way. That movie had a profound impact on me. So I watched that movie and it changed something. And I thought, oh, I might act differently now because it had a strong impact on my personality. Okay, so let's get started on the actual lesson. At the beginning of the class, I want you to match the historical landmark or event to the correct picture. As you can see, we have the Tower of London, Buckingham Palace, the House of Parliament, Changing of the Guard, Statue of Liberty, Independence Hall, Apple Park, 4th of July celebrations, and the presidential inauguration. And we have A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, and I. You can now pause the video if you'd like to do this exercise yourself and link these historical landmarks or events to the correct picture. Okay, let's go right ahead with the answers. So the Tower of London is, of course, C. Buckingham Palace is H, down in the bottom left, H. That is Buckingham Palace. The Houses of Parliament is A, well done. The Changing of the Guard is E, congratulations. The Statue of Liberty is G, good. Independence Hall is B, nice. Apple Park, which is I. The 4th of July celebrations, which is D, of course, and the presidential inauguration, which is F. Of course, we see Barack Obama here being inaugurated. Perfect. So what I'll do is I'll leave the reading on screen. You can either read it yourself and answer the questions, or you can do it as a listening and listen to my voice and then answer the questions as we go through. The United Kingdom, constitutional monarchy. The United Kingdom operates under a constitutional monarchy, meaning that the monarch's power are largely symbolic, with real political authority residing in elected representatives in Parliament. This system evolved over centuries and reflects a balance between tradition and modern governance. Historical foundation. The Magna Carta, signed by King John in 1215, is one of the earliest examples of limiting a monarch's power. This document established that the king was not above the law and laid the groundwork for parliamentary democracy. For example, it granted rights to barons and established principles like the right to a fair trial, which became a cornerstone of the British legal system. Okay, so the first question, do you remember what baron means? Yes, that's right. It's a member of a lower rank of nobility. Well done. Modern reflection. The British monarchy today is a cultural and historical symbol, but Parliament, consisting of the House of Commons and the House of Lords, governs the country. Citizens vote for members of Parliament, MPs, who are responsible for representing their interests. The monarch's role includes ceremonial duties such as the state opening of Parliament and symbolic representation of national unity. What are the different aspects of the British monarch and Parliament in terms of their involvement in politics? You can use your own words here, or you can take what is actually written. So yes, the British monarchy is symbolic. Yeah, it's a symbolic institution. It doesn't actually have any power, but whereas Parliament makes all of the decisions, this is the House of Commons and the House of Lords. They govern the country. This is the big difference. One is symbolic, one governs the country. United States, rebellion against the monarchy. The United States was founded on the rejection of monarchy. The American colonies, frustrated with British control and taxation without representation, saw independence through revolution. Historical foundation. The Declaration of Independence, adopted in 1776, articulated the colony's desire for self-rule and the principles of democracy. Its famous assertion, "We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal," reflected a radical departure from hereditary rule. It emphasized individual rights, liberty, and the consent of the governed as the basis for legitimate government. Do you remember what assertion and hereditary mean? An assertion was a confident statement that was either a belief or a fact. And hereditary is something that is passed down from generation to generation. Here is hereditary rule. So it is the power that has been passed down from king to child. Good. Or queen to child. Perfect. The US government is a federal republic with a constitution that enshrines the separation of powers among the legislative, executive, and judicial branches. Elected leaders, such as the President and the members of Congress, derive their authority from the people. Unlike the UK, there is no monarch, and American culture places a strong emphasis on individualism and equality. Do you remember what the verbs to enshrine and to derive mean? So, to enshrine, if we remember the word shrine, it's to put on a pedestal, to look up to worship, right? So they enshrine the separation of power of the legislative, executive, and judicial branches. So they keep the decision of lawmaking very separate. Derive, to get something from something else. So Congress derive their authority from the people. They take their power from the people. And then what are the differences between how the UK and America are governed? Well, we can see here that the UK has a monarchy and a parliament. The US loves separation of these powers, and they have always believed in democracy from the very beginning. Whereas the UK came from a monarchy and then transformed into a democracy. So we can see the differences in these two powers. Okay, key comparisons, values and systems. The UK system reflects a gradual evolution towards democracy, maintaining a balance between tradition, monarchy, and modern governance, parliament. The US system represents a deliberate break from tradition, prioritizing democratic ideals and self-governance over historical institutions. These foundational differences in governance illustrate how the history has shaped the distinct cultural identities of the two nations. While the UK blends tradition and progress, the US emphasizes innovation and equality. Okay, I'm going to ask you guys a question now. What system do you have in your country? Obviously, write your country in the comment section below. And is it similar to either the UK or the American one? I'm very interested to learn about you. Now, the reason why I showed you those buildings at the beginning and we linked them together was for this visualizing the cultural impact section. Here, we're going to look at how these actually visualize what this impact is. So, the UK. Images of historical landmarks like the Tower of London, Buckingham Palace, and the Houses of Parliament reflect the UK's connection to its past, while ceremonial events like the changing of the guard reinforce the nation's attachment to tradition, right? And the US iconic images like the Statue of Liberty, Independence Hall, and Apple Park in Silicon Valley represent America's core values of freedom, democracy, and innovation. Events like 4th of July celebrations and the presidential inauguration highlight the ongoing cultural significance of the country's founding principles, which are based in democracy. Okay, fantastic. Now we're going to look at the impact of key historical events. You may read on your own or you may listen again to me. You may pause the video at any time, of course. So, the American Revolution, 1775 to 1783. The American Revolution was a pivotal event that marked the birth of the US as an independent nation. It was a reaction to the British colonial policies such as taxation without representation, which angered the American colonies. The war ended with the signing of the Treaty of Paris in 1783, where Britain formally recognized the US independence. Do you remember what pivotal means? Good. It was a pivotal event, super important, that changed many things. Okay, so pivotal, incredibly important event here. Impact on American culture. The revolution fostered a national identity built on principles of liberty, democracy, and individual rights. The Declaration of Independence became a foundational text, symbolizing the country's commitment to freedom and equality. These values still influence American political and cultural attitudes today. Do you remember the verb to foster, what it means? To help and encourage something to grow, right? So foster care is we help and encourage a child's growth. The revolution fostered a national identity, which means it helped the national identity grow into what we see today. Impact on British culture. Losing the colonies prompted reflection in Britain, eventually leading to reforms in how it managed its empire. It marked a turning point in British colonial policies, shifting toward trade-based relationships with other colonies. Okay, so how did the American Revolution impact both America and British cultures? We have America having a national identity now, set in liberty, democracy, individual rights. Then we have the British impact, which is they shifted their policies towards trade-based relationships. Now we're going to be looking at the World Wars. The World Wars from 1914 to 1918, which is the First World War, and then 1939 to 1945, which is the Second World War. The two World Wars had a profound effect on both the UK and the US, shaping their roles on the global stage and influencing their cultures. Do you remember what the word profound means? Yes, profound is like a deep impact, like a huge effect here. So World War I. The UK faced devastating losses, with millions of soldiers and civilians affected. The war significantly altered British society, weakening the class system and empowering women, who took on crucial roles during the conflict. The US, initially neutral, entered the war in 1917, helping to tip the balance in the favor of the Allies. This marked the beginning of the US as a global power. World War II. For the UK, the war was a fight for survival, with cities like London enduring heavy bombing during the Blitz. The war united the British people, fostering resilience and solidarity. Post-war, the UK experienced social change, influencing the creation of the National Health Service, the NHS. For the US, World War II cemented its position as a superpower. The war effort boosted the economy, led to advancements in technology, and reshaped American society, including greater opportunities for women and minorities. Okay, so these are the impacts on both. Now, shared impact. Both nations emerged from the wars with a sense of responsibility to maintaining global peace. Institutions like the United Nations and NATO reflected their shared commitment to preventing future conflicts. How did the World Wars impact both America and British cultures? So, in the First World War, British culture was impacted massively because women got more power. They were at home making the bombs while the men were out fighting the wars, so the women had to work. The US was then seen as a superpower in the world and became a global power in World War One. In World War Two, the British had a fostering resilience and solidarity, and they created the National Health Service. So the NHS that we have today would not be around without World War Two. And of course, World War II for the Americans boosted them again as a superpower in the world, and it helped their economy and their technology grow. It reshaped their society. And then both cultures together had this feeling of a shared responsibility to make sure that they kept global peace. Okay, I have some discussion questions here at the end. How do you think the US and UK's differences approaches to governance, monarchy versus democracy, shape the way people in these countries view authority today? Do you see any similarities between the historical events that shaped the UK and the US, even though their outcomes were different? How does the concept of self-rule in the US compare to the idea of law and order in the UK? Which approach seems more relevant in today's world, or are both still necessary? And what role does history play in shaping a nation's identity? How important is it to understand a country's history to understand its culture? I love all of these questions, and I hope that you pick one maybe and answer down in the comment section below, and we can start a very fruitful discussion. So that is the end of the class for today. Thank you very much for watching. If you learned something in today's video, could you please like the video and subscribe? It really helps the channel out. If you'd like to continue learning on the channel, you can click here and learn English with a crime mystery. I wrote this lesson myself, and I'd really like to know if you can figure out who the thief was. If that's not your cup of tea, you can also click here and learn English with video games. Okay, thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a great day. See ya!